Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Today, we are really excited to have author and speaker Dr. Jill Zambon with us today. We are excited to hear about her journey up until this point, but also next direction. So, Dr. Jill, give us a rundown. Tell us about you.
Hey, ladies, it's great to be here. So, my name is Dr. Jill. I was born and raised in a very small town in Vermont. I had, small school. There was 27 kids in my graduating class and went on to military college. So, third generation in my family to go to Norwich, which is a private military college in Vermont. I joined the military when I was 18. So I was a US Navy Seabee. And so I actually did physical labor, construction, pouring concrete. I was an engineer, civil engineer, which is very hard to believe now because I sit behind a computer all day. But that's kind of how my career started. And so I would lead projects, typically between $500,000 and $1 million in size. At like 20 years old, it was crazy. And when I got out of the military in 2011, I had finished my master's degree while I was active. So I got a master's in project management, got out and went into IT project management consulting, and then got into healthcare shortly thereafter. So let's see, 2013, I had my daughter and was supposed to be married the next year. So, when I got pregnant, oh gosh, I was going through a divorce from the person I was married to in the military, met my daughter's father very quickly thereafter, and got pregnant quick. Long story short, the engagement fell through about 2 weeks before the wedding. So 2 weeks before the wedding, I'm like back by myself, single mom, sleeping on my dad's futon in his house because, him and my stepmom had downsized because all of us kids were grown and out of the house. So I think I was maybe 27 or 28 in my late 20s. And so embarrassing to be back at your dad's house with a child who wasn't even one. I had an 11-month-old baby. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, this is wild. So I was like, I just, I got to figure this out. So I kind of powered through. I didn't even deal with like the broken heart part of it. I just sort of, um, I don't know, like shut that side of me off. And I was like, I just need to focus on providing for this child and providing for myself. So I bought a house. So I'm a veteran. So I used my VA loan, which is nice because you don't have to put a lot of money down, which is fantastic. So bought my first house within a couple months and got a new job that was much better paying. And then I started doctorate school because I was like, why not? I mean, what am I going to do with all my free time? So, in the midst of this all, I also have always struggled. I shouldn't say always. So, about since the age of 13, struggled with alcohol and drug addiction. It runs in my family, and I got the gene. My sister did not. I will never understand how that works. But, anyways, I got the gene and I really struggled. So, when this engagement fell through, I immediately went to what I knew, which was alcohol. So, in the midst of buying the house, taking care of a kid, working full time, going to doctorate school, I also hit a new rock bottom with my drinking. And I woke up one morning and I was like, okay, this is it. Like, you're either going to get it together or you're going to lose this kid. Like, you cannot drink like this and then raise a kid, or she's going to have the same upbringing as me. And, luckily I was out of alcohol. I drank in all the alcohol in my house. And so I was like, okay, I'm just not going to buy anymore. So I didn't. And so I've been sober now for about 7 years. But that was tough. And I definitely again, I didn't cope with it well. I used my school and taking care of my daughter to distract me from, wanting to drink and wanting to do all these things, which, it worked. It worked for a while. Like I climbed the corporate ladder. I made the decision by the age of 30. I wanted to be a director in a large company. and I wanted to be making six figures, and I wanted to be done with doctorate school. So I hit the six-figure mark really early, but director and doctorate school I hit when I was 31. So I was a year past, but I'm like, I think I can give myself grace because I've been, you know, getting through some other shit. So I think it's okay. And so I was like, okay. So I hit that mark, and oh my God, like right when life felt like it was getting back together, I swear, it's like when things are smooth sailing, it just doesn't last long. And so, it then, I don't know, I just finished doctorate school, I think. Um, Bought a house in New Hampshire. So my daughter, um, her father and I, like, he took her every other weekend. He lived about an hour away. He worked in the same town that we lived and worked in. And so, it was okay. It was every other weekend. That's what it was, whatever. And right before COVID, I had just bought a house, and I worked for the company that did all the preclinical studies on COVID, so all the animal testing on the vaccine. So bought this house in New England, dealing with snow, dealing with everything, like power outages, frozen pipes, like heating the house, everything that happens in New England in the winter. Between that, her dad moved away with a couple weeks notice to North Carolina. So then I now had the kid 100% of the time. My job is super demanding because we were doing all the trials for COVID. So while other people working from home could have maybe logged off a little bit, like we were just working all the time. So we sold my house in New Hampshire, and me and my kid and the dog got in the car and drove 23 hours to Florida, and so that I could put her back in school, because I was like, I need to put down at least one thing, like one thing I need to set down. So we moved to Florida, and like, it was crazy. It was such a disaster. I mean, when the moving truck showed up for the stuff that we didn't sell, it literally had the DOT tag like duct taped to the side of this absolute crap box of a tractor trailer truck. I mean, it was so sketch. I called my sister and on like video to show her, because I'm like, no one's going to believe this story, what this truck looks like. And she's like, dude, you're not going to let them take your stuff, are you? Like, that's not even a legit truck. And I was like, I mean, I don't know. They have the paperwork from the moving company that I paid. So, I mean, what am I going to do? I was supposed to be in Florida in like a couple days. So it was crazy. Then we got down here, and like the place we were supposed to live wasn't ready. So the person had lied to me and said, oh yeah, come on down. And I got here, and like, I mean, it was to the point it was still under construction. So you had to wear a hard hat to walk around the premises. Like, it really wasn't ready. And so I'm like, this is nuts. So we moved into a different place, and then we had to switch a school system. I was getting her enrolled in. Like, it was just one thing after another. But we finally got settled. But I was like still burnt out. Like, I just wasn't in a good place. And I wanted to start a business so I could eventually one day like have some freedom to spend time with her. So I started an e-commerce business, and ran it for about a year and a half. But during COVID, like, sourcing and manufacturing was a nightmare. The post office was like shutting down. I mean, everything was shutting down. It was not a good idea. Like, probably not the best business to start, but it's where I started. So whatever. Closed that business down and started a new business. And by that point, I had left my job. So I like had a mental breakdown. I lost it. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I mean, I've been a single mom for 9 years, and like climbing the corporate ladder and focused on money and title and, all this stuff. And I left the job, started a business doing consulting. That man I was consulting for died of a heart attack a couple months into the thing. Like, it's like been so crazy. So then I hired a speaking coach to help me prep to go on stage and speak. So I used to be super shy. when I was a child, and to the point I could not even order my food like at a restaurant, and my parents would be they're like, what is wrong with you? Just tell them. But I don't know, I'm like not a super extroverted person. So I hired this speaking lady. She's like, why don't you do something to help single moms? Because you've been, successful as a single mom, like you could help coach and mentor other women to do that. And I was like, that's great, but I don't want to do coaching. I don't feel like that's my calling. And I don't mind mentoring people, but I feel like coaching is just so saturated and everyone's a coach. So I was like, eh. But what I did do was I started a book project. So I launched my first book, Shattering the Stigma of Single Motherhood. I brought 12 other single moms onto the project with me, wrote this book. I had been working with a publisher who, I thought we'd have a long-term partnership and work together and do multiple series in this book, but it just overall wasn't the best. It wasn't a good fit. There's a lot of just stuff happening behind the scenes that I was like, I don't want to be a part of this. I just want to show up and like build a team of women who write and then go out and speak. And there's just, I don't know, it wasn't right. So I was like, I'm going to change my demographic and keep the publishing in-house. So I'll take care of the publishing myself instead of relying on someone else. And so right now I'm in process with my second book, which will be for women in business. And it's gone better. But I think having done this twice now, I'm definitely like, okay, this is not where my passion is. I don't want to be a book publisher. That was not my intention. And so now I'm kind of at a point where, I thought I would get into like real estate investing or business investing in the healthcare space. But within the last couple of weeks, some crazy stuff has happened where I feel like I'm being led to ministry, which feels very shocking because I have had such a history, right? I mean, I'm a single mom. I've had addiction issues. I've done really stupid things. But I met with a pastor at the church last week, and he's like, that's not really crazy, because I am one of those people like, I'm not going to judge, right? So I think part of the reason a lot of people don't want to go to church is for fear of being judged. And, for me, I'm like, there's probably nothing you could tell me that I haven't done or thought about, or, like, I don't care. I'm fine with it. And I don't know, people just will come up to me and like, tell their whole life story. And because I'm not judgmental. Like I'm like, okay, it's fine. You're not any worse of a person for making bad decisions. So I am exploring that, and that's kind of where I am. And it's weird. And you guys are only the second podcast that I've told that this is kind of the direction I'm thinking about. I've had a very imperfect life. I've made a lot of mistakes. But I guess if this is where I'm supposed to be going, then I think it'll happen. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
I thought you were about to unmute.
No, I thought
Okay,
you
so
had
there's a lot to unpack in all of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so first, so when you did military, did you do military more so for like to finish school, or were you, when you originally got into military, were you looking at that as that was going to be your career?
So I went in thinking it would straighten me out. So when I was in college, I'd always been a partier in high school. That was the only way I could like overcome my shyness and my fears. And when I got to college, it didn't get any better. Right? Like, I mean, it was more people, bigger parties, and more clubs, and just, whatever. And so I was getting into trouble pretty well, had a few conversations with the cops, and thought that if I could if I could join the military, it would straighten me out. But there's a lot of things people don't know about the military. And one of them is that your addiction issues tend to get worse because then you're around other people who also joined because they also wanted to straighten themselves out. So then you've got like the biggest, you know, mentally sane people don't necessarily join the military, right? Like it's not the most sane people that join. It's typically not people that come from loving, kind families. It's usually the people who want to escape, right? That's probably like 99% of us. We're trying to escape something. And many of us have those same tendencies to rely on drugs and alcohol. So, you know, it did not straighten me out. If anything, I probably got worse. And then I got sent to other countries, and like things are crazy in other countries, and, you know, saw and did things that would have never happened if I had stayed in the US and never joined the military. I mean, just is a lot. And yeah, my intent was kind of to get myself into submission, and then that's not what happened.
So you did your amount of time because you have to
Mhm.
sign a certain amount, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I did
Okay.
5 years. For me, it was 5 years. Yeah.
Okay, and then from there, you said you got a corporate job?
Yes. So from there, I got my master's like right when I was getting out of the military. So I did my master's while I was active duty. And yeah, so I got out and got a IT consulting job right out of the military. Yep.
And then the e-com job that you did.
Mhm.
Tell us about that, because I feel like that's such a trending, not job, sorry, business. I don't mean job,
Yeah.
but I feel like that's a really trending thing right now, post-COVID. I know you said you struggled with it during COVID, but
Mhm.
what were you selling?
So I was selling women's work apparel,
Okay.
but you know, nobody's going to work. Nobody needed it. And so I tried to pivot, and it just like for the amount of time you have to put in to sell a product on e-commerce, like I tell people this all the time. I find it, I don't know if easier, but like it's just as much work for me as it like to sell a $3,000 package as it is for me to sell a $50 shirt. I mean, I cannot believe it. But for a single mom trying to live and sustain yourself on an e-commerce brand, like highly do not recommend. I mean, you have to sell a lot of stuff to get that income. And I was making like a lot of money. I mean, 170 base salary plus equity and bonuses at my business. So it's $250,000 a year easily between those things. And so to replace that income by selling clothing. But I know there's a ton of people who make it work, right? But on the flip side of that, what you don't see is how many people fail trying to get into that space because it is so saturated. There's a low barrier to entry, right? You just go
Mhm.
buy some stuff and you can throw up a thing, and Shopify's like, "Oh yeah, just use our platform and we'll help you sell and stuff." And it is not that easy. Like this is what scares me about social media is you get these people on there who just they talk about how easy it is to have an e-commerce business or start a coaching business, and like here you go, you know. And then you get into it and it's like, oh my god. I mean, I wanted to have my own line of apparel that was like all organic and super eco-friendly, so like bamboo and organic cotton and things like that. And then I had to move away from developing my own line because so much time was going by before I was getting designs, before I was getting prototypes, that I was like, this isn't good, right? So that is a tough business to get into. It is so saturated.
What made you reach the point of pulling the plug on that specific business? Like, was it just
So
because you were trying to replace the income and you came to the realization that wasn't going to happen as quickly as you needed it to, or was there something that really was a turning point?
Yeah, that, and it was just draining me. Like I had started it to try to have more time with my daughter, and I was really spending so much time um trying to build that business. Like outside of, I still had my job for quite a while, and outside of work, then I was trying to, you're making the content, you're promoting the product, you're out there doing, pop-up shops and events and all that stuff. And I just reached a point that I was like, this is just too much. I was just burnt out. So,
Okay, so tell us more about your book. So what is the book about? You said that you collaborated with other single moms as well.
yeah, yep. So it's called Shattering the Stigma of Single Motherhood. I have it right here, actually. Hold on, let me grab a copy. And so, yay. So there was 12 of us, and we each wrote our own kind of story about like how we came to be single moms and, some of the things we've experienced as single moms and how we've been able to like push through, because it is a lot of pressure for one person. Single dads too, I think very similar situations, right? Like when you're the only provider, when you're the only one to take care of a sick kid, like today, like there's no backup plan. So the stories are really just to help motivate and inspire women that are going through that, to know that although there's bumps, you will get through each of those situations. We had one lady who was actually single mom by choice. So she went and adopted 2 children, and she knew going into it, she'd raise them by herself. We had one widow, but the other ones were, we have very similar stories. It's kind of scary, actually. We all come from, not the most supportive families. Most of us have been abused or sexually assaulted. I mean, it's when you look at the themes that emerge in those stories, like you can predict if somebody's going to be a single mom, honestly, like before they even have a kid. Because if you're raised in a family where you don't see healthy relationships, and then you go out and you get in a relationship, it's probably not going to be healthy. And then you have a kid with the person that you ignored all the red flags, right? And then they're like, okay, see ya, good luck with the kid. I mean, it's the same pattern, it's not, we all have slightly different stories, but it's the exact same pattern. And so, I mean, I wasn't expecting that. I thought, we'd all kind of have very different, which they are different stories, but they're different, but a lot of similarities.
And you said that you went to a speaking coach as well. So do you do speaking events, or how did you apply that to what you were doing?
Yeah. So I haven't done any this year. I did a few last year and the year before. Just because I'm trying to figure out, like, I feel like I've spent a lot of time just trying to figure out, like, what am I supposed to be doing? Like, and you don't know until you try. I mean, honestly, I thought the book thing would be that the plan for that was to build conferences around the books and kind of whatever. But it's not something that I've loved. Like I'll do good at it because it's whatever, but it's not something that I love doing. So I'm kind of at a point that I need to figure out what I want to do next. So, but then I do plan to do, more speaking events around whatever that looks like. So,
well, I feel like that'll actually tie in nicely too if you do go in the direction of ministry, like anything you learned from the speaking coach and your experience actually speaking. I feel like that can only help you hone in on that skill.
Yeah, agreed. Yep.
So you're in Florida now with daughter.
Yes.
Do you have family nearby? Are you kind of solo down there by yourself? Are you feeling more established there? Like that's where you want to stay?
So that's a good question. We really hated it for the first, I don't know, like 6, 8 months. We really hated it here. And my daughter would have moved back to New Hampshire as soon as we could. But I was like, look, it's a change. We have to give it at least 2 years to see, how we feel in a couple of years. So we just hit our 3-year mark, or we will in a month. And we still, we tolerate it, I guess. But I recently found a church finally that I love, and it's got younger kids, like people my age. Because the median age here is like 68. So most of the people here are, 80s and 90s. It's crazy. So it's hard to meet people, like parents staying out with and stuff like that, because it's just an older place. So I finally met people there, which is good. So I finally feel like I have a support system there. Whether we end up staying, I don't know. We'll see. But everything's kind of open and in the air right now, which is uncomfortable, but I'm like praying that I get some clarity and something comes through.
Yeah. So what does your day to day look like right now? Because I know you said you're working on the second book.
Mm-hmm.
Investigating this concept around potentially going in the ministry route.
Yeah.
So what is a day to day for you right now?
Yeah. So like this morning I was editing chapters for the next book. So their chapters are due tomorrow. So I was doing that. I was looking over the book cover design. I need to make a landing page so we can start taking pre-orders and then develop that marketing strategy. And then, I was just looking at like roles that are more ministry based. So potentially going back to a job to get my feet back under me. But taking more of a step towards that ministry. So an opportunity came up through the church actually to attend ministry school and like get a master's in theology. So it's why and it came out of the blue. So part of me feels, this is why I'm like, it feels weird, but it also feels like the right thing because it just keeps getting reaffirmed. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
And so I think we connected because we all three were on the blocks. So I think we connected on Facebook because of that, be it we're in similar groups or whichever. But I've followed your social media since, and you have a pretty good active following. So now, did you establish that from building, like focusing on a personal brand online, or did you establish that more with this first book and those conversations?
I think personal brand, it's actually really funny. I wasn't even focusing on building my Facebook. I had been focused on Instagram for a long time. And then all of a sudden I realized one day, I'm like, wow, I have a lot of followers on Facebook. Maybe this is where I should be spending my time. But yeah, they are very active and engaged, and I don't even know where they all came from. I do think it's personal stuff. So I do notice when I talk about like more personal stuff, I get more engagement, which they do buy. I have people that buy as well. But when I start to push product, like my book and things like that, I see the engagement go down. So it's definitely more of like the personal brand, I would say. Okay. Which is great, but it makes it hard to build a business because then people want you, right?
Sure. And no one else.
Yeah.
So when you say this audience buys, what else do you sell other than your book? I went on your Linktree. I saw some freebies that you have. I saw a networking group, I think. So do you have larger ticket items that you sell, or, what do you kind of push off of that personal brand?
Yeah, so I did. So the book collaboration was my higher ticket item. So like $2,000 to $3,000. I'm taking on people right now who want to lead their own book collaboration projects, but I'm trying to back out of that space. Like I need to just reassess that as part of my personal brand, and like, is that really the space I want to be in? So that was my high ticket item. I've coached people too. So, those like $1,500 range typically. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. So if people want to do a book collaboration, I'm happy to guide them through that process and have them buy a coaching package from me. But I'm trying to wind down my own book collaboration projects. Yeah.
Nichole, you got anything? I feel like I've asked like 10 in a row.
No, I mean, you've hit on everything I've had questions about. So with the coaching, okay, you say you don't like coaching, but are you doing that? Is that like your main source right now?
So the main source is the book. So how it
Okay.
works is like when I had a publisher, so I would pay the publisher directly, and then basically people pay to come on and it helps compensate for that, right? Whatever I paid out of pocket out front. But right now, I've got some consulting stuff. Like I might have to step back into consulting temporarily until I figure out the ministry stuff. Um, Definitely walking on faith right now. Yeah.
I feel you on that. Your story is very like it resonates. Like I feel like there's a lot of people who've kind of been in your shoes or are following in your shoes, I guess, that have the same story, that faith has been their guide through it all. So it really makes me happy to hear that you've gone through all of this and at the end of it you kind of came back to ministry being the main thing for you. Like, I mean, I wish you the best. I just want to tell you, like, I love your story. I think it's great. I think the overcoming of everything and the fact that you've done it all as a single mom is amazing.
Mm.
I didn't have a question there. I was just going to tell you, I really liked your story.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so I know you said you're in a little bit of a transitional time or a little bit of a time of uncertainty, but do you have any long-term goals? And think of like that goal that you wanted to do it before you were 30, you did it by the time you were 31. So flexibility is key here, right? But are you just trying to find you at this point in life, or do you have some monetary goals or exposure goals or anything like that?
So this is a little bit like what we're kind of touching on before we came on is I feel like I got briefly obsessed with like I wanted to be a millionaire, right? And so I was like I took some real estate conferences and courses and signed up for a mentorship and was trying to do like wholesaling and just stuff like that. I was going to do real estate syndication or crowdfunding, and I had started down that path as well. And then all the doors kind of closed. And I don't know, like that really motivated me for a while. And I feel like that part just got removed from my heart. And it feels so crazy and stupid to say because like I really was on that path. And had a plan, like I was going to buy businesses and invest in them and use that to pay myself and take that money to go buy real estate and then go out and teach other people how to do it. And like I had it all mapped out, literally like a 5-year roadmap of what I was going to do and this what I need to do this year. But I'm just to the point where like I'm sick of the hustle, I'm sick of trying to keep up with everyone. I'm tired of going on social media and seeing people talking about their thriving business when I know behind the scenes that it's not. And I just came to a realization, like I'm trying to compete with people who aren't even real. Like their businesses, their ethics, their morals are built on a very shaky ground. And we're all trying to keep up with each other, but like drowning, I met someone at the blocks who I love her to pieces, but like it's that situation, you know, from the outside, it looks like it's all together. And I feel like I'm like that too. I've been there, but I don't want to be anymore. Like, I don't want to pretend that things are going great when they're not. I don't want to be out there, you know, hustling and chasing people down. And like, it just, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of back to square one. That, do I live a modest life where I am in ministry and I lead a church and grow a church, right? I would love to grow a church probably, but spend more time pouring into my daughter and her talents, because she is talented. She's a very good singer. She knows it. She's born with that talent. The kid's been like making up songs since she was like 2 or 3. And so part of me is just back to like, what am I chasing and why? Why do you need to be a millionaire? Like, what is that proving into who? You know, like money is good. You need it to survive, but like, I don't know that that should have been my central focus, or that should be my central focus, which it was for about, a year and a half. I was like really gung ho, like, I'm going to be a millionaire. Like, nobody's going to tell me different. Um, but I just had a change of heart. Like, I can't even explain it. It's actually really frustrating. It's been upsetting to lose that motivation and that drive, because I've always been a driven person. And to just have that like removed, I'm like, how did this happen? How and why? So that probably sounds super crazy, but that's the best I can explain it.
I think it sounds a lot less crazy than you may realize. I know Nichole and I also, since going on the show, the show was interesting because it did put a little bit of a magnifying glass on the businesses you were there with, right? Like, in the sense that you got to know their business really well. And you may, like, I'm involved in a lot of networking groups locally, and you think you have a general concept of people's businesses and success levels in general, not like I know everybody's financials, but when we went on the show and we had some in-depth conversations with people, and just the real conversations about what they're really struggling with, and the ups and the downs. And that's literally the entire concept of this podcast came from that, is that like, we left feeling like less lonely in entrepreneurship, or that there is real people out there, right? And then it's a catch-22, right? Because I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong, but then you get home and you're watching people post. Obviously you're posting on social media your highlight reel. That's what everybody does. Nobody's going to go on social media and just be like, lost my car, lost my house, unless you're asking for money, right? But it's just, there's definitely a bill of goods being sold by some people on the success level of their business. And Nichole and I have pretty consistent conversations around, like, is that what you have to do to get there though? Like, do you have to boast about success, almost in a manifestation type way, but publicly, right? Do you have to do that to get there? Is that what's happening? Or is it better to be super transparent and just say like, look, I'm struggling all the time. I'm struggling with whether or not to keep the doors open. Which way's better? I don't know. I don't know, but I definitely understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and I agree with it, because the false success that all these people, not everyone, I know that there are very successful businesses, and I know that a lot of people that we know are thriving and they are killing it. But it's kind of like you said, like, you go, like, it's kind of exactly like what's been in my heart lately, is like, you go on social media and you see these people and they're doing amazing and making so much money and killing it and taking all these like crazy trips like across the world. And it's like, what am I doing wrong that I'm not even anywhere near making that kind of money? That's your little one. Oh, you're good. But it's like, it's the judgment part. Like I'm kind
Yeah.
of like you, like I don't, as far as like what people do in their lives, like that's their life. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, I'm not the final judgment. I'm not the last person that you're going to talk to about what you did.
Yeah.
So but it's the envy, I guess, that
Yeah.
like you kind of unintentionally have because you're looking at their highlight reel and you're like, oh my gosh, like, do they ever actually work? Like they're in Paris,
Yeah.
they're in Texas, they're in Cabo. Like, I'm like, what do you do for a job? Like, I'm just so confused on like, how do I get that job?
Yeah.
So, like, I totally agree that I think there's kind of like this like false sense that's put out to the world
Hmm.
that creates that envy, but it doesn't necessarily work to drive people. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
it kind of puts people down in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they
And
don't
I'd
believe
be
in their own
lying.
business anymore. Like they're like,
Exactly.
oh, my
Yes.
business is obviously awful because I'm not doing anything you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. I know. And, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't jealous of these people. I'm like, yeah, I'm jealous, That's awesome. Your business is doing great. And I can't get my shit together. And, I'm on my second business. Like, I don't want to say failed business because this one actually was doing really well, but um, I don't know. Like, I never thought I'd be in a situation where I'd be making money relatively easily but still be miserable. Like I still don't feel that passion. And I'm like, I don't think this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so it's like jumping off the ledge again to figure out, okay, what am I supposed to be doing then? And am I just supposed to have like, I don't want to say mediocre life, but I almost feel like social media feeds us with all this shit that it's not okay anymore to just be middle class. It's not okay anymore to have a 9 to 5 job or to um have a regular life. It's like you're
Right.
constantly being fed, you have to have a bigger business, you have to be a millionaire, you have to go on luxurious travel, you have to, like, man, I was sitting on the couch this morning drinking my coffee. I'm like, what makes me happy? My dog and my kid. The rest of this shit I could care less about. I love my dog, I love my kid. Everything else is like variable, day to day. Some days I love people, the next day I'm like, I don't want to talk to anybody. And so
We definitely
that's
get
just,
that.
yeah, it's just at the point I'm at. I mean, it's weird. I never thought I'd be like this. I'm like, I'm back to like minimalist. I want to live in a shack in the woods. And, I'm just, it's so weird because if we had this conversation a couple months ago, I would have told you, I'm going to be a millionaire. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to invest in businesses. I'm going to invest in real estate. And that's what I'm going to do. And I am trying like hell to get remotivated by that goal, but it's just not happening. It's not
I feel like
happening.
social media almost like kind of killed businesses in a way because you've
Yeah.
got these like 10-year-old influencers who are
Mhm.
making millions of dollars and you're like, you're 10. Like what? You're unwrapping toys for a living, making more than I will ever make in my entire life. And then like I've got my 8-year-old and my 13-year-old thinking, oh, well, I'll just
I'm going to
TikTok
do
my
that.
way to money. And I'm like, that's not it. Like it would,
Yeah.
life was so much easier without social media. And I tell my children all the time that I am so grateful that I grew up in a time that social media was not a thing.
Yeah.
I would not want the stuff I did growing up following me around now.
Right.
And B, like, it was a simpler time. Like you weren't
Yeah.
like, yeah, you still had that like envy, jealousy thing going where like you saw someone doing something, or whatever, but like it wasn't always in your face. And I feel like
Yeah.
social media, everything is always in your face and it's always misinformation. And then again,
Mhm.
these children that are making millions of dollars kill me. Like
Yeah.
I really feel like I'm doing something
Wrong.
desperately wrong. Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I can order toys. I mean, I can have a creepy voice and unwrap toys. Like, I think that lady makes a lot of money.
Oh my God. Yeah,
But
it's crazy times.
It really is. So we always end our podcast episodes asking the same question. And
Here
given the
comes my dog.
conversation, what's that? Oh,
Here comes my dog now.
it happens. So given this state that you're in currently of, like I said, again, a point of kind of transition and whatnot, it'll be interesting to hear what your thoughts are. And if your answer would have been different 3 months ago than it is today. But so the question that we always ask is, what is one piece of advice that you would give to future entrepreneurs or an entrepreneur that is just starting out, and not the little kid who's opening toys for millions of dollars?
Yeah.
The adults, what's a piece of advice that you would give or something you wish you would have known?
Oh boy, that's a good question. I think I would say follow your own ethics and your morals. So even though you can look at someone else's business model, whatever they're doing, whatever they're selling, and they're making a lot of money, if you went and did the exact same thing, if it doesn't feel right to you, like, then you shouldn't do it. Because I think that's a trap that I started falling into, was like, oh, I can go out there and buy real estate and do this and that and borrow people's money and put in there and there and there and there, whatever. But I don't know. You just have to do what feels right for you.
I think a big theme of yours too, and obviously I'm not trying to put words in your mouth here, but is to find what you're actually passionate about.
Yeah.
Like I think that that's kind of where you are right now. You've tried things out, and you're great at obviously everything you're doing. It's just like you get into it and you realize I'm not passionate about this. And
Yeah.
guests that we've had in the past, that's kind of been like a reoccurring theme, I would say, with the guests that have come on, is find something you're passionate about and put in an unhealthy amount of time into your passion. And so I feel like for you, I think that it's the passion. Once
Yeah.
you're great at everything you do. So I can't wait to see what happens when, you find that one thing that you're like, I am absolutely, I mean, I could see you having like the next, like, worldwide church.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's just where your passion lies. I think that you're going to kill it.
Thank you. Oh,
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on today. I know that you have a lot going on, and I definitely hope little one feels better soon. I know how that goes.
thank you.
But thank you for taking the time. And just in case anybody doesn't know how to find you, or if they're interested in purchasing your book or anything like that, what would be the best way for people to find you, either on whether it be a website or social media, or what's the best way for them to find you?
I would say find me on Facebook. I'm very active and I love when people send me messages. So don't be shy about sending a message. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Jill.
Thank you.